You are listening to the weekly podcast from Legacy Christian Church. Changed lives, changing the world. For more information, please visit us on the web at www.lvlegacy.org.
I don't know what my voice sounds like, so it's been kind of weird. Have some, not to get gross or anything, but just stuff going on. Yeah, I'm good. Seems to be a bit better. Thank you. But good morning, Legacy. It's great to be here. This message really has been kind of on my heart from the time we laid out the schedule. So it's just kind of weird or ironical, as they say in Good Will Hunting, that I would be able to preach it a month going into the battle that I've been in the last month. So, I've been so much like a fish out of water, to be quite honest. Literally like a fish out of water, struggling for just a fight of breath, fight of air. But it's kept my mind fairly occupied, just surviving, some days. Early on in the month, it wasn't so bad. The last 2 weeks have been really a struggle. And those of you that have seen me in the last couple weeks, either in the hospital, especially in the last week, know that it's been really a fight. I was just sharing with the deacons that in an interesting way, it's kind of like when Megan died. Been a mixed bag of blessings. Because when you're struggling for every breath is a prayer. And it's tough. It's been hard, especially the last 2 weeks. And so I feel, then you have all this other gamut of emotions going on. I worry about you guys and being a shepherd and a leader for our deacons and our staff and for the church family. And of course, I have my beautiful bride who's just been a rock. She needs... I don't even know what to say. There's no award or any classification of reward that I could bestow upon her. She is the best. And I just pray that you guys continue to lift her up and support her in any way you can while she's trying to deal with my mess, because I'm a mess. My hope, though, to be quite honest, is that this is temporary. The chemo kicks in. I feel better every day since I got chemo on Monday. So today is, even though it took me a while to get here, today's a lot better than it was yesterday, and yesterday was a lot better than it was the day before. So each day is getting better, and I have chemo again on Monday. So hopefully, the chemo kicks back the cancer enough over the next few weeks that I can start breathing normally again and not have to worry and rely on oxygen. Sound like a plan? So thanks for just hanging in there with me personally and praying for me. But most importantly, thank you for supporting Mike and Nicole and the deacons and the rest of the people that are keeping this running in. Because there's been a lot of cool stuff happening in the last few weeks, right? Arise was awesome. We had the Barktoberfest. We had the trunk or treat. All this happening while I was sick, And you guys did that. Not Richie, not Mike and Nicole. The Legacy family did that. Through Jesus Christ and the power of Jesus and the story and the epic love story being poured into your hearts through the people that are in these seats that care about driving that message to your heart. Okay? They've taken the initiative to share the story with you. Those that are new to the story. They've taken the intentionality to stick to those relationships over the last year or 2 years where they've just been in your face saying, no, you're not going to leave. You're not going to walk away. We're not going to let you walk away. We want you to walk this walk. Okay? And so those people are the people that deserve the credit, along with, obviously Jesus and grace and mercy and Him getting them into the story into the first place. But our job from the very beginning has been to find the lost. And you know what? In the last 2 years, the lost are leading the lost. Okay? In fact, when we started this church, the lost were leading the lost. Okay? And that's the way it should be. That's what grace and mercy was designed to be and was for. Jesus came and died and poured that message into our hearts. He filled the gap. He filled the void that we couldn't fill as part of the epic love story to show people how to live. And I'm not even started a sermon yet. Okay? Just talking about where we're at as a family. We are growing by leaps and bounds, people. You may not know that or understand that, but there are people in these seats right now who have been changed miraculously because they've entered the story a year or two ago. Because people have invested in them. They've taken time. They've nurtured them. They've cared about them. They've loved them. They've joined one love groups. Is it easy? No. It's hard work. I mean, heck, 3 years the disciples were following Jesus. They still didn't get it. What did they do when He died? They hid in a room. They ran and they hid. So don't think we don't have our act together just because we fail or we fall or we stumble once in a while. Okay? It is what it is. We're humans. To err is to be human. To be perfect is to be Jesus. And that's why He came. To replace us, sort of. You know what I mean? To fill us with Him and make us mini me's, mini Jesuses. But it's a constant battle, isn't it? So, today's theme is living ready. And living ready is something, about 20 years ago, let me take this off. I'm well enough oxygenated now, so my levels are good. About 20 years ago, a friend of mine preached a sermon, and he talked about a professor who had written these 2 words in the front of his Bible after he had heard a sermon and read some scripture, and it said, "Live ready." I thought, well, that's a good idea. So for 20 years, I've had "Live ready" in the front of my Bible. But I'm a classic overachiever, so I have "Live ready" in the back of my Bible too. So it's been there since, and it will stay there. And any Bible I change over to, I write it in there. I write several things actually, in the front of the Bible. One is if, ... then God. Simple, right? If. If what? If anything. If anything good, if anything bad, if anything simple, anything large, then God. Another one was, I heard a sermon about John the Baptist. I just couldn't get it out of my head. He is greater. I must be less. Less of him. Less of me and more of him is what I have. So that and live ready. And I wrote one stupid one recently. It says, stay loud and be gloriously irresponsible. I don't mind being gloriously irresponsible. Okay, so let's get to the sermon. 20 years ago, I heard this sermon, right, as I mentioned. And I'll explain more a little bit later about those 2 simple words. But those 2 words have really been part of my Christian life for almost 20 years. And believe me, in those 20 years now, I've been able to live them out and see them come to life before my very eyes. In fact, you could say I'm in the midst of one of those times now. Although the discussion today is truly a wrap-up of Mark 13. We're finishing up Mark 13. The last 3 weeks' sermons, I have to say, are all about living ready. And even next week, when Justin preaches, it'll be about living ready to a certain degree. I have to say that living ready has been in my face now for the last year and a half, and even closer in my face in the last 2 weeks. And like I said earlier, for those of you who see me in the last couple of weeks, you could see this and you know this. The interesting thing is, though, the last 3 weeks have really been about living ready. And I also believe that today, hopefully today's discussion will reveal to you all the very nature of our true hearts that God wants for Himself. I'm going to take my time on this sermon, okay? I want you guys to hear it today. I think it's very important. I'm not saying that just because I'm preaching it. I just think it kind of encapsulates what we've talked about in the last 3 weeks, but also encapsulates what we've been talking about the last year. God wants all of you. He wants your heart. Okay? He doesn't want half of you. He doesn't want a little bit of you. He doesn't want bite-sized chunk pieces. Plain and simple, Jesus wants all of you. Completely. Utterly. You cannot truly live ready if your heart is not completely surrendered. You agree? Okay? If your heart is not completely surrendered to the living, grace-filled, loving God who came here in human form simply to die for you and to give you a current and a future kingdom life, then you need to rethink it. You need to start thinking about where you're at and assessing where you're at. How did these last 3 sermons tie in? 3 weeks ago, Andy spoke in depth and with great clarity on what it means to work the vineyards of our lives. And the fact that God gives us each vineyards to work and produce fruit with, doesn't He? Doesn't He? Just because I'm sitting up here looking all lame and sick doesn't mean you guys don't react today, okay? All right? You're going to react the way you always do, right? Right? Okay. So cheer up, right? Better days are ahead. Okay. So, you got the watchtowers, you got the walls, right? You got the gate, and you have the vineyard. Okay? And you have the people, you have the workers. And we have to work the vineyards. Then Mike on Serving Sunday, which was the Sunday we went out and to be the church, Mike spoke directly about our core values. Now, are our core values in the Bible? Huh? Indirectly. Okay, they're derived from, but they're not in the Bible, okay? But there are core values as a church family, okay? And they're derived and driven and exposed from the Bible, okay? But they help us play every day in the game. They help us play when we come in here on Sunday. They help us play in the workplace. The core values, if we're living them out daily, we should look at each of those core values, and they should be all centered around working the vineyards of our lives that God has allowed us to be part of, whether at the workplace, the home place, if you have a family, relationships, whatever, okay? Anywhere, somewhere where God's story and your story and other people's stories intertwine, okay? Those core values should be put into play. Okay? Then Justin made the call for us last week to do what? Does anybody remember? To return to Jesus. To return to Jesus. What is the logo for Legacy? The infinity. Does it ever end? No. It's cyclic. It's continuous. Ebbing and flowing, okay? So Justin made a loud and clear call that Jesus doesn't want us patty caking, okay? He's done with this stuff, playing around, okay? Once you enter the game, and you enter the vineyard, he expects fruit. Expects fruit to be produced, okay? And either has all of us or he doesn't. And if he has all of us, what's the byproduct? Great vineyards. Great core value living out, right? But the key to that is we have to continuously go back, don't we? There's this process of living, learning, playing, returning. Living, learning, playing, returning. Because we get refreshed. We get renewed. We become wholesome. There's a holisticness to that. Okay? Why do you think Jesus did it? Okay? Jesus went back to the Father constantly. Did he need to? He was God in the flesh. You know? So he was giving us a model of consistency to come back to me. Consistently, constantly, daily, hourly, minutely, if necessary. In the last 2 weeks, there have been days where it's been minutes for me. Just a prayer. Jesus, meet me in this place. You know? Because I don't know if I can take another breath. Help me with another breath. So, as we do all these things, and I'll go a little deeper into it later, we're in the process of living ready, aren't we? We're living ready. There's this constant work. We're entering, we're learning, we're playing, we're returning. We're entering, we're learning, we're playing, we're returning. Now, the final part in our process is coaching. But if you're coaching, you're always returning anyway, right? Because you're always mentoring. You're having to learn yourself. You have to be refreshed yourself. You need time to spend with God so that you're able to mentor and coach and disciple properly yourself. Okay? So how do we get our hearts to enjoy this process of renewal and living ready? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? Motivation, initiative, intentionality. How do we stay motivated? You know, does it take a tragic event? Or are we able to, before something happens, stay ready? And that's my job as a shepherd, is to work on you people and help you work on doing that. Okay? If you don't have a Bible, go ahead and grab one. We're going to Mark 13. And I forgot to mark the page number down, so bear with me. It's probably 700 and something, 710. We're going to Mark 13, verse 32 and 37. And as you go there, let me just say that Jesus again is talking in very serious terms about what he does know about the beginning of the new earthly kingdom and the new kingdom coming, okay? And that he will, what he and God and the Holy Spirit will eventually restore. I know it's one of those issues that has been debated and talked about for years, okay? What is heaven? What is hell? What does new earth look like? Et cetera, et cetera. That's not for today, okay? He's just talking about, hey, one day it's going to happen. And you need to be ready. You need to be on watch, you know? But for today, I want you to focus on the lens of living ready. Living ready, which is really the underlying message of Jesus' message here too. Sound good? All right. So let's read this together. But the day or hour, no one knows. No one knows. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son. So he's admitting he in his flesh does not even know. Be on guard. Be on guard. Be alert. Sounds like living ready to me, right? You don't know what time. You don't know when that time will come. It's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Live ready. Man, if that scripture doesn't scream out, living ready, I don't know what does. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows or at dawn. If he suddenly comes, do not let him find you sleeping. Okay? What I say to you, I say to everyone. What? Or what? Lord, live ready. Like I said, if this scripture doesn't scream, live ready, I don't know what does. This reminds me of a story about me and my friend and my mentor and my pastor, Vince Antonucci, who launched a church out in Vegas. You know, when I first met Vince, I was in a pretty bad way. Actually, been a Christian 1989. I met Vince in 1998, thereabouts. So almost 10 years. And I went through this weird phase. I backslid for about a year. And those of you that don't know the word backslid, basically I fell into an old habit. And I started smoking some weed. Out of the blue, 20 years later. Like the last time I had done anything like that was in the 70s. And I thought I'd fried enough brain cells then to not be stupid enough to do it again, you know. But obviously it didn't work, right? So, and so I had not dealt with some stuff on a real level, apparently, and needed counseling and did some other things. And I met Vince, and he would say that I was probably the toughest nut he had to crack at Forefront when he first started the church, because I knew better. You know, I'd been a youth pastor before. You know, it wasn't like I didn't know. And so, you know, I reverted to the old way, an old way of acting out, like many of us do if we have unresolved issues. Okay, which is why I'm a highly avid fan of counseling, professional counseling in general, to deal with the issues of our lives that we haven't dealt with, especially the old scars, the ones that really, really are buried and are really hurting, which was the case with me. So he became a bit frustrated with me, and he stuck with me and showed me nothing but love and grace and mercy. And the big reason, he's one of the biggest reasons I'm here today, to be quite honest. Anyway, after much counseling, both from him and professionally, I broke free from that bondage rather quickly, actually. Didn't take long. But I remember joking with him one night. And I was like, okay, so I'm all good now, you know, everything's cool. But say I decide to move to Amsterdam, and it's legal. And he's like, he looked at me like kind of funny, but he didn't smile or joke. Like he's kind of serious. He said, you know, that's all cool. He said, you'd be all right. You'd be within the law. But how are you going to be on watch? How are you going to be alert? How are you going to live ready? And I'm like, I hadn't thought of that. The only thing I was thinking about was, you know, having a church service and passing the wine and the bong. And he didn't think that was very funny. But I remember, you know, just laughing about it, but then being very, very struck by the thought that what he was saying was true. It was true. You lose your identity, don't you, in things. And you can lose your focus very easily. Small little things you think are simple and small can take you away from the main thing. And the main thing is the plain thing, isn't it? Or the plain thing is the main thing. I grasped the thought completely, and I took it as solid truth from that point on. If you look at the passage we just read again, it requires attention. It requires intentionality, not distraction. You know, when Andy was talking about the watchtowers and the walls, it takes intentionality. You got to be on lookout. You got to be checking things out, man. You're looking for things that are coming, things that are close, things that are hidden. If you're toiling the garden, what are you looking for? You're looking for bad roots. You're looking for bugs, insects, you know, all those things that can destroy and kill. But it requires initiative. It requires intentionality. You must be intentional about looking and watching things over and living ready. You know, in the military, they give you military assignments, right? Anybody here been in the military? All right. So they give you watch assignments, right? And one of the 10th century rules is don't fall asleep on watch. Okay? But it happens all the time. All right? And people have been hurt. People have been killed. Things have happened. Bad things have happened. This is what happens when you're not alert. when you don't live ready. Staying awake on a 6-hour watch in the middle of the night on a 12 to 6, if you've been up all day working, is very, very difficult at best. There were times at sea where I remember standing 3-4 days of watches like that in a row. Working all day, get about 3-4 hours sleep, go on watch at midnight, get off at 6. And by that third or fourth day, man, you are dragging. And to keep your eyes open and make sure you don't take the ship off a degree, because 1 degree can lead you astray how many miles, right, after a certain number of hours. It's tough. So don't think of this as some light warning from Jesus, especially when you look at the previous sections that both Andy and Justin preached on in the last couple of weeks, and even core values that Mike talked about. Jesus is clear there are consequences for not following him. Working the vineyards has been that he's set before you, and not continuously living ready in returning to him as often as you can daily to receive his mercy, his grace, his love, his compassion, and also direction. Sometimes tough direction, not easy direction, right? So this begs the question, how does one live ready, right? How do we do it? Well, let me begin with a blog post of all things. Just on Thursday, a friend of mine from the church shared with me this blog post, and when he found out what I was talking about, and the one line that really shot out to me, both me and he, was this: who am I on this day before I am compelled to be someone else? Who am I on this day before I am compelled to be someone else? But for our purposes today, let me just rephrase it a little bit. Who am I? Am I living ready before some event or situation comes along in my life that would compel me to think or live some other way? Okay, let me repeat that. Who am I? Am I living ready before some event or situation comes along in my life that would compel me to think or live some other way? So keep that in mind as I read through some of the excerpts of this blog post, okay? Okay? All right. So, the news story is strange. This is from a blog post, a blogger called Internet Monk. He actually died of a disease. I think he died of cancer. And he was a monk. The news story is strange and tragic. 3 college softball players go for a nighttime drive in the country on an unfamiliar road. They take a wrong turn, drive into a pond, and drown. Now think about this. There was a day before, wasn't there? A day with no thought of drowning. A day with family and friends. Perhaps with no thought of eternity. No thought of God or heaven. There was a day when every assumption that tomorrow would be like today. Just be another day. Everything's hunky-dory. Every little thing is going to be all right, man. He then goes on on to talking about a friend of his whose plight is very much like my own. Check it out. My friend Gary, though, he's been the night dean at our school for more than 20 years. His wife has been in poor health, but he's been a workhorse of health. He's walked every day, eaten a vegetarian diet. That's where he went wrong, by the way. Always kept the rest of us lifted up with his smile and constant focus on the joy he took in his salvation. 2 weeks ago, the doctor turned to him and said, leukemia. Today he stands at the crumbling edge of this earthly shadow, looking at the next world, fighting for his life with all that medicine and prayer can offer. Our prayers for him as a school community have been continuous, and just like it has been from you guys and from others outside of here, because he never thought there would be such a day. Think about that. Because he never thought there would be such a day. There was a day before he heard leukemia, a day of work, a day of chores, a day of bills, hopes of seeing a grandchild, prayers for students, love for Susie. Not a thought that the journey of life contained such a surprising turn for him. And on that day, Gary was full of faith. Full of faith. Servant's heart. Ready for many more days and ready for this to be the last one before whatever was around the corner. See, Gary was ready to live ready, wasn't he? Those students were not sure of. Listen, as a word picture, as a word picture for me to illustrate, I'm going to use something here. I have a rope here. And let's just say that this rope symbolizes eternity. Okay? And we'll just take this rope, and this rope is actually, whether you see it or not, it goes out the door right now. It's wrapped around the building a couple hundred times. And we'll wrap it around Allentown, around the earth, maybe around the solar system a few times. And it just goes, and it goes, and it goes, and it goes. Okay? So get that in your mind. You got that? So you got the white rope. The white rope is eternity. It's forever. What's that? That's our lives. Small little piece of yellow. Got a handle on it, don't you? Don't we have a handle on our lives? You know, every birth of a child, marriage, every little event in our lives, every little thing that's happened, our 403k diving, our world shattered, we lose a job, all contained in this little yellow line. And so we get so caught up in this, don't we? This little piece, this little yellow thing, don't we? And then you think about that, and it goes on for what? Forever and a day. Forever and a day. But here's what we worry about. Focus so much attention on this. Not that we shouldn't, to a certain degree, right? But there's a way of focusing on this that has an impact on this. Okay? On not only your own eternity, but the eternity of others. You know, when I was called to become a pastor, it just became part of this yellow line. But it became part of my legacy, didn't it? Whatever your vineyard is, whatever your calling is, it's in here. You need to seek it. You need to find it. You need to pursue it. You get a grasp on it. Okay? And start figuring out how to live ready so that this part here has a huge impact on this part here. Make sense? Okay. What is eternity, man? You know, the time we have here on earth is the time we have to live ready. It's the time we have to live ready. So to live as if it was a day before. You know, like I was talking about before all those events happened with Gary, those kids, with me. There was a day before, wasn't there? There's a day before that yellow line ends. Several days before. So let's go back to Larry. Say again, on that day, and I'll add some of my stuff too. Gary was full of faith. He was full of a servant's heart, ready for many days, or ready for this to be the last one, for whatever was around the corner, right? You know, when I first came up here in July of last year, I said, I trust God no matter what. If I die tomorrow, I'm gone in 14 years, I'm gone in 14 months, whatever. I have to trust implicitly. That's part of living ready. You know, for the most part, we all live days before, don't we? In fact, we all do, don't we? For eternity. Or have the opportunity. And for the most part, all of us have the opportunity to live ready. In fact, are we living ready for them now? You know, there was a day before 9/11, wasn't there? There was a day before your child told you that she was pregnant. Or he was pregnant. There was a day before you were tempted into addiction once again. There was a day before you were assaulted verbally, physically, sexually, whatever have you. There was a day before, wasn't there? There was a day before your spouse said they'd had enough and they left. There was a day before your employer said, hey, layoffs. We're done. There was a day before Megan, our daughter, died in an auto accident. There was a day before I found out last year that I had stage 4 cancer of lung and brain. You know? And I could go on, right? We all could go on with our lists of days before. We all have days before to live ready. Those days that we live in the yellow. Days we focus on. We're living our days before, but are we living them ready? Because the truth is, we're all living them out, right? You know, I mean, I've said this and asked this already. Some of us doing it for the last time. You know, what we think we'll be doing 20 years from now, we won't be. Some of us are on the verge of a much shorter life, or a very different life, or a life turned upside down, somewhere out there. You know, not here. You know, some are preaching their last sermon. That's not me. That's better laughter than that. Come on. Unless you want this to be my last sermon. Okay. So, some are saying, I love you for the last time. Some are making love for the last time. Some of us are spending our last day without the knowledge of eternal judgment and the reality of God. Which is sad, right? Which is why we're here. We're promising tomorrow will be different. And tomorrow is not going to give us the chance, because God has a different tomorrow entirely on our schedule. We just don't know what it is yet. And that requires what? Faith. Faith, right? We don't know what's happening tomorrow sometimes. Who am I on this day before I'm compelled to be someone else? Or before some tragedy or event tries to compel me to be a different person or a different man that God has designed me to be. What am I living for? You know, how am I living out? Am I living out my deepest expression of who I am and what I believe? These are questions we have to ask ourselves. Have I been working the vineyards of my life? You know, manning the watchtowers, guarding the walls of those vineyards? Have I seen and been living out the core values of loving God and loving people in a one love way? Have I been truly doing that? And have I continuously returned to Jesus and the Father for renewing and refreshing, to both Him empower me and fill me with His Spirit, which He says resides in me already, right? And trust in Him and grow closer to Him. You know, I just read a book. I just started reading a book a friend of mine recommended. Where are you at, Matt Holstein? But I also like the writer. It's Mark Batterson. He's got a new book out called All In, and I highly recommend it. In the very first story of the book, it's a perfect example and expression of who I'd like to be and want to believe and what I want to be known for. Check this out. A century ago, a brand of brave souls became known as one-way missionaries. Actually, it would be, I guess, Mike and we would be known as one-way missionaries, huh? They purchased single tickets to the mission field without the return half. And instead of suitcases, they packed their few earthly belongings, check this out, into coffins. As they sailed out of port, they waved goodbye to everyone they loved, everything they knew. They knew that they'd never return home. A.W. Milne was one of those missionaries. He set sail for New Hebrides in the South Pacific, knowing fully well that the headhunters who were there had martyred every missionary before him. So he knew where he was going and what was up. Milne didn't fear for his life because he had already died to himself. So part of living ready is what? Giving you up, right? Remember what I said earlier? Jesus is not patty caking. He wants all of you. He wants all of your heart. Every single piece of you. So he had died to himself. His coffin was packed. For 35 years, he lived among that tribe and loved them. When he died, tribe members buried him in the middle of their village and inscribed an epitaph in his tombstone. When he came, there was no light. When he left, there was no darkness. Man, what kind of line is that to say about someone, huh? Is that an awesome epitaph? Something to be known for? See, inevitably our lives are an accumulation of days lived out in what we believe. And being true to those beliefs every day as best we can. This epitaph they left him was an epitaph of living ready. Gary, we talked about earlier, the story of Jesus nearby, and the joy of the Lord and a ready word to share. It's humbly my prayer that I'm living in the same frame of mind, and I hope you guys are doing the same. Because when you're living ready, when a day comes that leukemia or stage 4, or whatever word is thrown your way, whatever grieves your soul or your heart, you should be ready to hear victory in Jesus. Okay? That's the living ready line, right? We have victory. What Jesus accomplished on the cross was victory. He sealed the deal. And so when we know that, we understand it, and we grasp it, we can trust completely. Trust God in moments of living ready. When that day before goes away, even in the midst of the yellow, there's that moment of understanding that because of what Jesus accomplished, the rest is going to be history, right? Okay? There's a hope. Those words, victory in Jesus, speak louder and more certainly promising and trusting than any other words in this world. They're surprising words that we hear and should hear in the midst of tragedy as they shout their unexpected truth into our ears and into our hearts. Because those days are going to come, people. Just because we're Christians and we're Christ followers, or you think everything's hunky-dory, life happens. Amen? So you may be sitting there thinking, okay, it's great, Richie. It's great for you. Great for Gary. Glad you have that faith. Well, guess what, family? The same thing is totally available to you. No different. I'm no different than any one of you in this seat. The same thing is totally available. And just like I said early on, to wrap up this discussion, the last 3 weeks' sermons, go back and listen to them if you didn't hear them. If you need written copies, we'll send them to you. Let us know. I'm not going to rehash them. They're too good to redo. And they clearly explain what's necessary to do the process. And it is a process of being and living ready. The bottom line is, folks, Jesus and his father doesn't want you patty caking or half stepping. I keep saying it. They want each and every bit of you. They want all of you. Commit your lives to believe in the gospel message of love, in the epic love story, as we call it here. Commit your lives to it. But where do you begin? First off, you commit. You commit. You enter the story. And many of you in here have done that. But to be quite honest, and I'm not holding back here, some of you are holding back. Some of you are holding back. You're half committed. You're patty caking. You're half stepping. I could have you raise your hand, but I'm not going to. Okay? You know in your heart. It's time to give it up. It's time to give the ghost up, man. So what's commitment? First off, stop hemming and hawing about baptism. Okay? If you haven't been baptized as an adult, get baptized. If Jesus did it, do it. Okay, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just being honest. There's the commitment of baptism is just a public proclamation that you are on the team. It's the beginning sign saying, you know what? I am fulfilling the commitment that my parents meant for me when they sprinkled me. Okay? If you've been sprinkled. So don't worry about the sprinkling baptism. If you've never been baptized, then step up. But stop hemming and hawing about it and just do it. We're going to have the pool up next week, and I'm telling you, I want it full. All right? I know there are many of you in here right now that have not been baptized, and you need to be baptized. It's not a commitment to Christ. Okay, just so you know that. Your commitment to Christ is here. It's in the spirit and in the heart. Okay? The commitment is to you and publicly to the world, saying, this is who I am from here on out. And I'm going to do everything I can to live ready and share this epic love story in a way that matters. So just do it. Okay? So I consider baptism to be the first outward sign. Yep. I'm on the team. So if you got problems with that, you can come up and punch me later. Secondly, be intentional about getting plugged into this family. Either in a One Love group or serving somewhere or joining up with a few folks that you know and you're comfortable with, and start playing in the vineyard. Enter the game. Start learning the game. Start playing in the game. And then while you're in the process of that person hopefully, or people, or group of people, are also showing you how to continuously return to Jesus. And go back, enter, learn, play, continuously go back. The infinity symbol. Playing in the vineyard is serving. It's giving of your generosity. It's giving of your time and relationships. And first and foremost, to Jesus, okay? But then to people. But then with folks around us. And it has to take and does require intentionality. Okay? You have to make it happen. You can't just sit back and think it's going to happen. You got to go. You got to do. Like Nike said, just go do it. Okay? Listen, I'm not going to be bashful and just say go back and listen to the last 3 sermons and give you 3 clear directions. Because they will give you clear direction on how to live this out and nurture this Christian living life. It's not easy. But go back and listen to them, okay? I think the Internet Monk closed out his blog and explains in a way much better than I can, in a nice clear picture of what it means to live daily and live ready daily. Check this out. Live each day as the day that all gospel is true. In other words, live each day as if what we know to be the epic love story is true. Because it is. Okay? Live this day and be glad in it. Is that easy? Live this day and be glad in it. What day was it? Monday. Karen and I had a moment. And I was Monday was the worst day I've had in years. And I just was really struggling. And I just said, listen, I just need you to hold me. I don't know if I can make it another breath. I'm struggling here. And then we just stood there, holding each other, and cried. But it immediately made me glad. So I knew it was a God moment, both her and I. But it was reality. It was God showing up in a way that I didn't expect. Live this day as a day of laying down sin and taking up the glad and good forgiveness of Jesus. Give it up, man. Start letting your stuff go. Sin will eat you alive and keep you farther from God and away from God. So start laying it down daily. If you need be, pray confession in the morning to God. Pray confession at night to God. But also be willing and open as soon as you feel comfortable with sharing stuff with people so that they can hold you accountable. Lay down your sin. Live this day determined to be useful and joyful in Jesus. Live this day in a way that should all things change tomorrow, you get the bad news, okay? Live this day that you will know that the Lord your God in this day is here to be satisfied for Him and in Him. Okay? Having to live this out, especially in real life in the last month, I would also add this, okay? Live this day in a way that shows Him that you trust Him completely and utterly, no matter the situation or the news, good or bad. Romans 8:28. Live this day as if you trust Him completely. Truthfully, I honestly just want two things said to me when I finally do pass away, whatever that is, and hopefully it's years from now. Did I do what was right in the eyes of the Lord? That's one. And secondly, what I showed you earlier about that missionary. I want it said of me, when he came, there was no light, and when he left, there was no darkness. That would be a simple enough thing for me to be happy about. Amen. So, what you focused on? What's your yellow? How are you living ready? And how is it going to impact the rest of eternity? Something to ponder on. Listen, I'm going to do something a little different. I know the band's probably not ready for this, but I'm going to have a call to prayer. And anybody that's ready, start living ready, I want you to come up here. And anybody that feels led, we can come up and pray over them. But I'm just going to pray from my seat. But I'd like to pray for people that are ready to make that commitment today. And you just take a few moments, ponder it. There's no pressure. This is not really an altar call, okay? But it's just something to say, you know what, I'm really thinking about this, and I want to make a commitment to God. And if out of that baptism comes about next week, that's cool. But I'd really like for us to pray for each other. And for those that have not, I want us to pray for those that are half-stepping. Really what it comes down to. You know what I'm saying? So, unfortunately, coming up here is going to be in a minutes. That's okay. All right? Don't let the Spirit slow you down. Nobody's here to condemn you, judge you, or anything. We're here to love you, pray for you, and help you.
Thanks for listening to the weekly podcast from Legacy Christian Church. Legacy meets weekly at 5925 Tillman Street, Suite 800 in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Stay tuned for the weekly update.
Hey, what is up, Legacy peeps? This is Mike, the Creative Arts Guy, here with your weekly update. Check it out this Thursday. We're going to do a 24-hour prayer and fasting event here at the Legacy facility. Doors will be open to the facility the entire 24-hour period. There are prayer slots available at 30 minutes at a time. And if you have questions or if you want to offer up your time or your prayers, swing by the facility starting at 7 p.m. on Thursday the 21st. It will end at 7 p.m. on Friday the 22nd as we break into Engage, a hour of prayer and worship here at the facility. And we just invite you to come be a part of that. Other events that are happening, we have the shoe boxes for troops. We're still collecting items to be sent overseas. We have all the shoe boxes we need, but we're still collecting items, and we need you to help fill those things out. So bring the stuff back by December 8th so we can package it all up and send it overseas. If you need an idea of what to get on the gear list, grab a gear list from the board in the Live Love area in the lobby. Other cool things happening. This is the last week for turkey feathers. We're going to feed 3 families this Thanksgiving season, and we need your help to do it. If you didn't grab a turkey feather, you can come in sometime during the week. You can always call us here at the office or email us, and we'll get you set up with that. But a reminder to please bring back everything by next Wednesday, the 27th. That's right. Last but certainly not least, on December 7th at 8 a.m., we're having a men's prayer breakfast. So dudes, come hang out and come have some pancakes and some eggs and some coffee. Better yet, some good times with some good fellas and some good prayer. Thanks for spending your Sunday with us. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.